Hello, my people. Good morning to you, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever time zone you're listening to this, thank you for tuning in every single day to join me on Daily Mind Shift. My name is Michael Lujola for Mindset Transformation Africa, and on today's episode, I want us to talk about the role we play in our own suffering. Let me anchor today's episode on this statement. Always acknowledge the role you played in your own suffering. That is a surest way to evolve better. Always acknowledge the role you played in your own suffering, in your own pain. That is one surest way I know that you as a human being can evolve better. That is what I want us to think about. That is what I want us to talk about today. Think about it for a minute, just for a few seconds. What role did you play in your own suffering? What role did you play in your own pain? The pain you are feeling right now, what role did you play in attracting them, in living inside the pain, in absorbing the pain, in influencing the pain, or even in causing the pain? What role did you play in your own suffering? I know this conversation might sting us a little bit, but trust me, it's one of, I think it holds the key to growth. It holds the key to our transformation. So we will be talking about the importance of acknowledging the role you played in your own suffering. Yes, you heard me right. It's about looking in the mirror and owning up to the part you played in your own pain, in your own mistakes, in the setbacks that you faced in your life. What role did you play? I know this is not an easy thing to do. It requires you to have courage. It requires you to be extremely humble. And it requires a willingness to face some uncomfortable truths in your life. But if you are willing to go there, if you are willing to look at your life with honesty, you will find that this is the surest way to evolve into a better, stronger, and a wiser version of yourself. Let us start by understanding what suffering is. Suffering is a universal experience, all right? It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, or what you believe in. Suffering is part of the human condition. And here is another thing. Suffering is not just about what happens to us, all right? It's about how we respond to what happens to us. Many of us go through life thinking that our suffering is purely the result of external circumstances. We blame our parents, we blame our partners, we blame our children, we blame our jobs, we blame our family members, we blame our financial situations. We even blame the universe for the pain that we saw, where we are experiencing. We blame God. Or whatever you believe in, you blame those things. And while it is true that external factors have significant role they play in our suffering, it is equally true that our response to these factors can either amplify our suffering or alleviate them. When we refuse to acknowledge the role we play in our own suffering, we give away our power. We become victims of our circumstances. We become helpless to change our situation. But when we take responsibility for our path, we reclaim our power. We begin to see that while we may not have control over everything that happens to us, we do have control over how we respond to those things. And that response can either lead us into deeper suffering or guide us towards growth and healing. See, you need to understand that we sometimes often find comfort in blaming other people because it's easy. It's easy to blame other people for our suffering. In fact, it's comforting in a way. Blaming others allows us to avoid the uncomfortable task of self-reflection. It gives us a sense of righteousness, a feeling that we are the wronged party, the innocent victim of circumstances that are beyond our control. It gives us that type of comfort. But here's the thing that I want you to take away, all right? Blaming others may provide temporary relief, but it does not solve the problem. It doesn't make the suffering to go away. No, it doesn't. In fact, it often makes it worse. Why? Because when we blame other people, we are essentially saying that the solution to our problem lies outside of ourselves. We are saying that we are powerless to change our situation because it is someone else's fault. As long as we believe that, we will remain stuck. Because blame is a way of avoiding responsibility. And as long as we avoid responsibility, we cannot change. We cannot grow. We cannot evolve. Blaming others keeps us in a cycle of suffering. All right, because it prevents us from looking within ourselves and addressing the root cause of our pain, addressing the root cause of our suffering. Now, let's talk a little bit about the role of ego in all of this. See, the ego is that part of us that wants to protect our self-image at all costs, all right? It's the voice in our head that says it's not your fault, you are the victim here, or you are right and they are wrong. That is your ego. The ego is about self-preservation. It will do whatever it takes to avoid feeling vulnerable or feeling exposed. But here is the thing. The ego is also a major source of our suffering. The ego is what keeps us stuck in patterns of blame and avoidance. It's what prevents us from taking responsibility for our actions. The ego doesn't want to acknowledge that we might have played a role in our own suffering, because that will mean admitting that we are not perfect, that we made mistakes, that we are flawed. Here's the truth I want you to take away today. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. We all have flaws, and that is okay. It is part of being human. The problem comes when we allow our ego to prevent us from acknowledging these mistakes and flaws. When we let our ego take control, we stay stuck in a cycle of suffering because we refuse to see the truth in our relationship, in our situation. So this is what I want you to go away with today. You need to take responsibility. That is how you can be free. Take responsibility. Taking responsibility for your suffering is not about blaming yourself, okay, or taking on guilt. It's not about feeling guilty and feeling pity and pitiable. No, it's about acknowledging the role you played in your own life. It's about recognizing that your choices and actions and reactions have contributed to where you are today. And it's about taking ownership of those choices so that you can make different ones in the future. When you take responsibility, you free yourself from the bondage of being victimized. You free yourself from the chains of victimhood. You stop you stop waiting for someone else to change your situation, and you start taking action to change it yourself. You stop blaming others for your problems, and you start looking within yourself to find the solution. Taking responsibility is empowering. It gives you back your personal power because it puts you back in the driver's seat of your life. It allows you to see that while you may not have control over everything that happens to you, you do have control, immense control over how you respond. And that response makes all the difference. That particular response makes all the difference. So how do you begin to process the process of acknowledging your role in your own suffering? The first thing is you have to reflect. You have to think through whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is that you're doing. You have to think through. Practice self-reflection. Set aside time each day to reflect on your life. Ask yourself tough questions about your choices. Ask yourself tough questions about your actions, your reactions. Be honest with yourself and be willing to see the truth, even if it is uncomfortable. And also you challenge your ego. You recognize when your ego is trying to protect you from uncomfortable truths, and you challenge that voice in your head that wants to blame others and avoid responsibility. All right, you take ownership of your life. Accept that you have a role in your life. Your choices, actions, and reactions have contributed to where you are today. Also, learn from your mistakes. View your mistakes as opportunities to be better rather than reasons to beat yourself up. No. Ask yourself what lessons you can learn from your experiences and how you can use those lessons to create a better future for yourself. And finally, you commit to be better. You commit to change. Once you have identified the patterns of behaviors that have contributed to your suffering, you commit to changing them. These will require discipline, effort, and persistence, but the rewards are worth it. Thank you, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye for now.